How are you
Sure.
seeing the economic perspective, that the economic journeys plan out at the moment? Are you seeing particular appetite for investment from businesses in the US, but perhaps slightly slower in Europe? Or how does it seem to be? Is there a different pace throughout the world at the moment?
There, what we are seeing really is the large Western markets and countries have put tremendous emphasis on policy responses, fiscal responses, and we see those benefiting essentially the business community, where they're enabling many of these large businesses to continue with their sometimes short-term and medium-term investment thinking. There's definitely been somewhat of a rapid comeback in what we see within the US market. There are different scenarios in different countries, broadly in Europe. However, there's a consistent theme that there's significant policy response there as well. And we see similar things in some of the markets that we serve in Asia Pacific, for example, in Australia or Japan. And so overall, there's been quite a concerted push by governments to support this level of growth or this level of activity. And we think that that's going to support our business and even the technology transformations in the medium term.
Some policy responses, particularly here in the United States, haven't favored your business at the moment in terms of the inner workings of Infosys. For example, I'm thinking first and foremost about immigration, the US visa approvals, the standstill there, but we've also seen some strain put on visa approvals in the UK and Australia as well. Is this a long-term shift, do you think?
So here, one of the things we've put in place a few years ago is a concept we've called localization. For example, in Europe, in the US market, in Australia, we've been recruiting employees from colleges directly, as also from lateral hiring. Last year, for example, in the US, we recruited 1,200 college graduates. Since we've made this shift over the last couple of years, we've recruited over 13,000 employees within our US business locally. So while there's been some changes in the policy approach in this area, since we've put in place our own thinking and executed on localization, we see less impact into our business model as we look ahead. In the US, we've set up 6 new digital centers over the past couple of years. For example, a digital center in Indiana, in Indianapolis, in Raleigh, in Phoenix, in Hartford, in Rhode Island. And these are centers that are helping us to scale our business in the US as well.
To a certain extent, of course, it's not only internal politics of a country like the US in terms of immigration, but also, well, geopolitical risks that we see, US relationships with that of China, China's relationship with that of India. How are you finding that as something you have to navigate as a CEO of a large Indian business?
So today, for us, really, our focus has been in our businesses in the US, which is 60% of our business, our European market, which is 25% of our business, and then the rest of the world comprising different parts, with Australia being a significant part of the rest of the world. We have a small business in China where we work with Chinese private enterprises, essentially companies that are growing up in this tech space, and then some global companies that operate in China. So at this stage, our business really works carefully within the global guidelines, government regulations, with supporting local businesses in their jurisdictions.
Do you have any hopes for, particularly perhaps here in the United States, which is such a large part of your revenue base, for what policy making could be made to sustain your business that little bit better? What would make doing business with the US easier, particularly for those employees that are here on the ground?
So what I see really is the change in technology and the continuous change that US companies have in their mindset to leverage technology, and what we see more and more global companies centered in Europe doing that as well, is what's driving our business. So of course, there's other policy dimensions, but the primary activity that drives all of the change is this technology innovation. Our digital business today in the first quarter grew at 25%. And we think that's really where the greatest impact is. The work that we do on the cloud, in cybersecurity, on IoT, these are the types of changes that we benefit from the US. Of course, there are other dimensions, as you referenced, on policy, but they don't have the biggest impact today because of the technology drivers.
And talk about how you've seen perhaps your role as a technology leader change within the COVID pandemic. There's news, of course, that you've been almost sort of embracing public-private partnerships here in the United States to help launch contact tracing applications, for example. Is that something that you see yourself doing more of?
So there, we've offered up our technology platform and capability to some of the states that we are working closely with to make sure that if they want to launch any of these within their support, their tracking, their handling of the COVID response, we are there for them. And one of those examples was in Rhode Island, where we worked closely with the governor and ensured that our technology platform was leveraged as they saw fit to make sure that they could address the needs of handling COVID within the state. So we're ready for that. We're working with other states in the US and actually across other jurisdictions as well. We've done quite a bit of work in supporting the communities in India, in the UK, and we're starting to do more of this across Asia Pacific as well.